Okay, so the next thing we want to cover is a very important concept in Catia that is called encapsulation. And basically it's working with objects in groups. And there's different ways to do that in Catia, but the easiest way is we've already done, which is put objects into folders, and then you can work with folders as a whole. So here, for each object, we can go to the object and see its definition. We've seen it already. We can also, for a whole group of objects, see what they're referencing in the model. So you remember we started building this object with the point 1 at the origin, and that was referencing the XY plane, which is at the base of the object. And then every object has reference starting with that point. So if we go to this group, we can check its inputs. So basically that's what the whole object refers to. And you can see that the XY plane is the only thing outside the group that's being referenced by the object. Now we want to change this model a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to be able to copy this whole floor instead of rebuilding it again for the second floor. I want to be able to copy the whole object as a group, and just by changing some of the inputs, I can have it move up. So in order to do that, we want to change the object. So instead of this point referencing the XY plane, we're going to build another plane into the object itself that has an offset. So then we can control the height of the floor a lot easier. So to make a plane, we go to the plane tool, and we can specify, again, there's a lot of different construction types of planes, but here we just want to have it offset from this basic XY plane. So we click XY plane as reference, and then we can specify some initial value for the offset. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to have this origin point that everything else is related to move from referencing this XY plane to this new plane. And we can do that again by going into the point definition, and here where it says reference plane, click that, and then click this new plane. And everything should update around that point. You can see it's red now, and when it's red it means it hasn't been updated. When you click OK, the whole object will update, and now you can see that floor plate is moved to the height of the plane. And what's great about that is now we can specify the height of the floor simply by changing the offset of this plane. So if we wanted 2 meters, click 2, and the whole model updates. Okay, so we can set that back to 0. So if we go now into the first floor, edit inputs, we still see that the basic object, which is a new plane, is referencing the XY plane, which is outside the model. And whatever you do in Catia, you're always going to have something outside as a reference, always. And it's usually these initial planes that sets up for you. Now what we want to do also is in the inputs have, because right now the objects are relating to parameters, and as you remember, it showed how the formulas are actually created also in the model. Now if the formulas remain outside of the set, then they're not going to be seen, the parameters aren't going to be seen as references for the set. So what we want to do, if we want to really be able to copy and paste this and control with different parameters, we want to actually put these formulas into the geometric set as well, and then we can copy and paste not only the objects but also the relationships. So we do that. This is a little tricky, but you want to just select any relationship that has to do with objects in the set. So we see all of these, everything in the geometric set first floor has to do with objects in that set. And to copy and paste them, you just control click on each one. You cut them by pressing Control X. You go into the set and you Control V, paste them into the set. And basically now everything that's in the set, everything that we built so far that defines the first floor, is contained in this geometric set. And if you go now to edit inputs, you can see that the XY plane geometry is a reference, but also each of these parameters are references. And I'll show you why that's important in a second. So now we have this first floor. And now if we want to make more floors, all we have to do is copy and paste this whole geometric set. So if you hit Control C, go back to your original root structure, Control V, and it'll paste a new object into the tree. Now this object is the same exact as the first one and it's sitting on top of it, but if we go into the structure, it's copied all the geometry, we can change the offset of this plane to move the new floor wherever we want. So say we want it 4 meters above the first floor, and now it moves. And since we put the actual formulas into the objects, it's copied the formulas as well. So now this object, the new object, is completely independent from the old one. And if we go into edit inputs, you can see that those parameters, offset, length, and width, are also references. And why it's important is, say, okay, so we want this core to be the same size as this core always, so we keep length and width the same, but maybe we want this new floor to have a different offset. Say we want to have an overhang. We want to create a new parameter that's going to control the offset of this floor differently than the offset of this floor. So now we can do that. If you go to function, length, we can create a new offset parameter, offset 2, specify a different value, maybe 2 meters. And now all we have to do is go, maybe we can rename this to second floor. If we go to the inputs of second floor, instead of this offset, we want to change it to the new offset. All we have to do is click on offset and hit the new one, and it'll replace that parameter. Okay? And now the two floors offset are independent, but the cores always stay the same. So if we change the width of the core, both cores change because they're both it's input into both of these geometric sets, but we can change the offsets independently. But maybe we don't want to control the two offsets independently. Maybe we want the second offset to be some kind of ratio, as an overhang ratio. And we can make new functions that aren't necessarily length functions, that are just numbers that control relationships between different parameters. So if we want to set up this ratio, we can go to a real, which is just a number, and call that overhang. It's the initial value of 1. Now we can use this parameter to have the first offset control the second offset. I'll show you what that means. So again, to have a different this parameter controlled by another parameter, we go into edit formula, and here we don't have to just click one parameter. We can define any algebraic relationship of any parameters and numbers. So say we want this overhang number value to be multiplied by this overhang to get the second one. So we click offset, and we can do times overhang. So right now, if the number is 1, then the overhangs match. If the number is less than 1, the overhang will be smaller. And if the number is more than 1, then it'll be larger. So what we have now is this whole model controlled by just 3 parameters: the size of the core, the size of the original floor plate, and then an overhang value.